I got too much Monta.
So, this Mavericks team this year, it's honestly an amazing team. It's a really fun team to watch, and it's one of my favorite teams from since I've been a Mavericks fan. I have been a fan of the Mavericks since 2012, which is when League Pass started. I've watched some highlights here and there at the end of 2012, and yeah, so I really like the Monta teams. So you had the team with Jose Calderon and Sam Dalembert, and that was a fun team. Mavericks got the 8th seed, and they got to Game 7 against the Spurs. That was a really fun year, really fun team. Then the next year we had Chandler Parsons, and we traded Calderon and some other stuff for Tyson Chandler. That might have been my favorite year because the Mavericks had the best offense in the league. Except then they traded for Rajon Rondo, which is a shame. I mean, I guess on paper, it was a nice trade, of course. I've never actually really talked about that trade, I guess, so might as well. Rondo doesn't really shoot well. And yeah, so in hindsight, you know, it wasn't really a great trade. I remember being kind of hesitant about it, but at the same time, he was kind of known as like a star player, so I was really kind of excited about it. Except that we traded a lot of depth for him. Like we traded Jay Crowder and Brendan Wright, Jameer Nelson, which ruined like a bunch of depth for the Mavericks. So except for that, it was a fun year, and we got Dwight Powell out of it. So I look kind of fondly back on that year. But already this season might be my favorite season. Like the Mavericks are seriously having the best offense in the league again. So it's like Monta Ellis with Dirk compared to Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. Yeah, this might be a little more fun, actually. So yeah, it's a young season, of course. So we'll see where it goes. But yeah, right now it's really fun. Last year was really fun, of course. From the seasons that where the Mavericks didn't make the playoffs, it was probably my favorite. Even though I really liked the OJ Mayo season, weirdly enough, but that was because it was my first season ever, and right away they were really serious about making the playoffs, which they didn't do. Like they almost did, and it was really fun to just see them like play really hard, and that season made me a fan. So to have last season be almost more fun just because Luka was that much fun, that's saying something. That's saying how much fun Luka is to watch play, And now with Kristaps, it's even more fun, honestly. And the Mavs are playing so well and competing, and let's go over some players the Mavs acquired. So DeLon Wright, I think he's a great person. He has a fun personality, and he plays really hard. He plays really fast. And even though a lot of people call him a bad shooter, which makes sense because he shoots like around 30% from 3. He's shot like 60% from 3 this year, which is because he's only shot 10 3-pointers. He's 6 out of 10 right now. So that's not a lot of threes, but he's still shooting efficiently at least. So that's a good thing. And he doesn't have to shoot a lot of threes, Something that I've noticed is that he plays better without Luka, honestly. Like he needs the ball in his hands, but Luka does as well. So, he's better with the ball in his hands, and that's fine. Something that I've also noticed is that he only really starts when they need guard defense, which makes sense if they're playing against like James Harden or like let's say Mike Conley or something. Damian Lillard, they need someone like DeLon Wright to guard the best guard on that team, So, he starts in those situations, and I've noticed that if they don't need that, then they start Seth Curry because he's just so much better at offense, and I like that a lot. I like Rick Carlisle's being really smart about his matchups, and the variety of players within the lineup, And whenever they need wing defense, Dorian Finney-Smith seems to start. So like he guarded LeBron, and I think that's just really smart. And there hasn't really been a situation where, lately at least, where they've needed guard defense. But I think from now on, probably Justin Jackson starts next to DeLon Wright. Like, let's say against the Bulls, for instance, you have Otto Porter Jr., who isn't really a great offensive player, but he's still a small forward, So having Dorian Finney-Smith in the starting lineup probably really doesn't make sense. I'd see Justin Jackson start for that. And then, DeLon Wright for Zach LaVine. I think that makes the most sense. If they need guard defense, they start DeLon with Justin Jackson. If they need wing defense, they start Dorian Finney-Smith and Seth Curry. And I think that way they'll still have consistency within the starting lineups, but still they have variety for different matchups. Like I said, I've been impressed with DeLon Wright because of that. He's played great defense, and he's pretty fast. He goes coast to coast. Then Seth Curry, I think he could shoot better. I mean, he's still a great shooter, but he's able to shoot better. So I hope that happens. He's a great playmaker, pretty decent defender, which is nice. So then you have Dorian Finney-Smith that I mentioned. He plays hard defense. I think he's really underrated. Some people seem to kind of hate on him because he doesn't really do a lot on offense. I think that's kind of fair, I guess. But I just really like that he seems to be a decent shooter. Not amazing and just the best defender on the team. That's how I see him. Maybe DeLon Wright, but at least the second best defender on the team. I really appreciate it, and he's great at offensive rebounds, which we really need. And he just hustles, man. And that's important. And maybe Justin Jackson is the better player. I don't really think so, honestly, but maybe he is. But he's perfect off the bench. Like, that Doug McDermott role that Doug McDermott played, I believe 2 years ago. That's exactly the role that Justin Jackson can play. Just shoot a lot, run a lot, drive a lot. And then, honestly, Justin Jackson isn't even a bad defender. So he can really shine in that role, honestly. Then, Luka, of course. Luka is amazing. I was pretty high on him coming into the draft, and then he exceeded my expectations. And then this year, I felt like he could be better than last year, and he's even exceeded that expectation of me. It's just ridiculous. He's probably like a top 5 player right now, and it's just amazing to see him play, and he's really clutch, really fun to watch. He can create offense. He can make plays for others. Probably already my second favorite Maverick next to Dirk, which used to be Monta. But Luka is probably so much more fun, and he's a great person as well. He kind of struggles with his English, which is kind of relatable to me. I don't know, English is a tough language when you're not a native speaker. It has a lot of difficult enunciations and letters, and it's tough to explain. But Luka seems to, like, lately in an interview, he didn't know the words for goosebumps, and that was pretty funny. It's just funny to see that he's still learning English, and he's pretty good at English. Like, you can really talk to him in English, but you don't really get the best answers out of him. And I think that's part, like with questions, with interviews, I think that's part of that is because he still kind of struggles with English. Like, I've seen him talk in Slovenian and Spanish. I don't speak those languages, of course, but when you see him talk in those languages, it seems really fluently and really effortless. And maybe he'll get there in English one day. But like I said, English is just really tough when you're not a native speaker. It doesn't really roll off the tongue like those other languages. Like, for some reason, Spanish isn't, like, I don't speak Spanish, but when I read words, and when I try to speak those words, it rolls off the tongue easier. I don't know why that is. English is just like, it has a lot of like, it puts a lot of emphasis on a lot of words, like the word emphasis. Like you have to really say it slowly and emphasize it, and that makes it tough to speak. And yeah, but that's not the only thing. Of course, Luka, he forgets a lot of words, but also, Luka's just focused on winning and playing. You really see that, and I kind of like it about him, honestly. Like Kristaps is more about talking in his interviews. Like he wants to talk about playing better, about his teammates, and about what things are fun about the team and stuff. But Luka, he seems to really want the interview to be over as quickly as possible, and it's not annoying. It's just fun, actually. It's just like he just doesn't really like it, and he just wants to play. And well, that's the thing. When people ask him like stuff about like how did you win, he always says some really easy stuff like I love playing and I love winning. But when you ask him about other players, then he usually gives better answers, and I think that's really fun about him, that he talks more about his team than about himself. So, okay, so Kristaps Porzingis, I feel like a lot of Mavericks fans don't really know much about him, and he was pretty hyped at the beginning of this season because he's supposed to be this all-star caliber player. And I think honestly he's playing pretty well for someone who hasn't played in 2 years, who's come off one of the worst injuries you can have, an ACL injury. For a guy that big, 7'3", that's huge. And if you suffer some injury like that, you're gonna be rusty. But honestly, he's been scoring like around 20 points a game, and he has like 2 blocks a game, like 8 rebounds, I think. His defense seems to honestly be better than it was in New York. Like he didn't always consistently block shots. He didn't always rebound a lot. And I think that's because of the extra weight he put on. And maybe the extra weight is going to take time to adjust for him in terms of playing offense, And also I think being like a second option is going to take some time for him to adjust for. But mostly Rick seems to do a lot of catch and shoot for him, and not really a bunch of pick and pop, not really a bunch of post plays, especially. And so the New York Knicks are my second favorite team, which is because I kind of wanted like an Eastern team that plays earlier, which is for Europeans a lot more convenient, because then they often play at like 1 a.m. on Fridays, which is nice because then, that's the earliest it gets, like the Mavs often play the earliest at like 2 a.m. So, an Eastern team was nice, and I thought the Knicks, because Madison Square Garden is nice, and the fans are really passionate. But lately, because of all the toxicity, a lot of fans take it too far with that passion. And I'm starting to second guess wanting to be like sort of like a Knicks fan because of that. And also the organization is terrible. But what I wanted to say is because I'm pretty big sort of a Knicks fan. I've watched a lot of Porzingis. I've watched a lot of Knicks games with Porzingis, and I've also watched some national games from the Latvia team. So I think I pretty well know how Porzingis plays, and that is honestly like a lot of ISO play, a lot of post play. Honestly, they did similar things for him, like how Carmelo Anthony played. Like, they just give him the ball in the post, and he often did like face-up shots, fadeaway shots. And, that's really outdated. So, I guess it's not bad for him to adjust and be more of like a shooter. But, Dirk still did it. I mean, they have a whole playbook for Dirk, of course. And I think it's not a bad idea to implement some of that for Kristaps. I think that will really help him. and I think that means that he like that's not necessarily what Kristaps did, but what I liked from Dirk, and I know you can't really compare the two, but they are pretty similar. It's just that's just what it is, And what I liked from Dirk is how they often um, let him set a screen, and then they gave him the ball, and then he gave it right back. And that's not something that I've seen Kristaps do. And I think if he learns to do that with Luka, that'll be really effective. Honestly, I'd like to see more of that, and I'd like to just see him set more screens, do more pick and pops, and also more post plays. And I've seen some good ideas from people from the Dallas prospect. Check him out on YouTube. I've seen him mostly talk about how Porzingis needs to get going in the first quarter. Like they have to like set some plays for Porzingis to like get him going. And I think that's the best thing for Porzingis because they they don't really involve him all that much in the first quarter, and then he has to get going pretty slowly during the game. And I think, yeah, getting him going early is what's going to be really important. So then Dwight Powell, he hasn't played a lot of games, but since he's been back, he's been playing well. Just being like a rim runner, and I'm kind of a fan of Porzingis and Dwight Powell together because Porzingis plays the four on offense but defends fives, and simultaneously Dwight Powell defends fours while playing five on offense. And I think both of them are great in those roles because Dwight is a great offensive five, but he's better at defending the perimeter than defending the rim. And Porzingis is the opposite, because he's a great offensive four, but he's not a great perimeter defender, and he's really good the rim protector. So I'm a fan of that pairing. And then Maxi Kleber works with Kristaps as well because then you have two shot blockers, two switchable shot blockers, and two guys who can both shoot. It's just that Maxi isn't really a rim runner, so both works. I think Dwight works better, but I didn't mind seeing Maxi start in his absence. And then you have another center, of course, Boban Marjanovic. I'm a big fan of him. He's really fun to watch. Like, he's instant offense from the bench. Like, from what I remember, Amari Stoudemire being for the Mavs in his short stint. And also David Lee. They both just were like spark plugs for in the low post, like how Enes Kanter does, And I think Boban does really well in that role. And he's also improved his shot. And he's a pretty good rim protector and a great rebounder. He's just not that fast. So, he can't always play in every matchup, which is fine. So, against teams like the Lakers who often play 7-footers who can't shoot, that's perfect for Boban to play in. So yeah, I've been impressed with him. Then we have Jalen Brunson. He's really, honestly, been better than last year already. He seems quicker somehow, more confident, and plays better off the ball, but also with the ball. So I've been happy with him. So then we have Tim Hardaway Jr. I'm kind of indifferent about him, I guess. He gets a lot of hate because he shoots too much and he plays too much, and I agree with that. But at the same time, when he gets going, he's honestly pretty important. And it's kind of comparable to Wesley Matthews, who I was really annoyed with because he started and he took a lot of shots, and he seemed really important on defense, even though he wasn't really a great defender anymore. But at least they know what Tim Hardaway is. They let him play off the bench, and they don't see him as a great defender. So as long as they keep it like that, then I'm pretty satisfied. If he just sticks with his role I wish he was more efficient and took some smarter shots. But like I said, if he sticks with this role, then it's okay. So then JJ Barea, he made his debut against the Magic, and he's honestly looking pretty good. Like he's gotten an Achilles tear injury, which is, it should really like hinder your explosiveness, and he's like 35 years old. But I guess because he's so short, he relatively got like a quick recovery, and he seems less explosive. He kind of like stumbles a bit, like when he walks, or how you want to call it. And but at the same time, he hit his shots. He made the right plays. Yeah, I'm kind of happy with how he plays. And I think it's fine if like maybe Jalen Brunson and Delon Wright play a little less, so that JJ Barea can play like 10 to 15 minutes sometimes. That's okay. That as long as JJ doesn't really play like 25 minutes or more, then I'm really happy with it. I like JJ Barea a lot. He honestly he got us the win against Orlando. Like without him, the Mavs wouldn't really have won, I think. So JJ is really important still to the team. Okay, yeah. So Courtney Lee started in the first two games, and that didn't really work. And I'm happy that he doesn't really play anymore. Um, I don't have anything against the guy. He's a nice guy, and he used to play really well when he was younger. But he's getting kind of old. He doesn't really shoot effectively anymore. He isn't the defender that he used to be. And this is a really deep team, so I don't really see any minutes for him. Then you have Ryan Brokoff, who played like 1 minute or something and hit one shot, which was nice. And he honestly should play more, but that's not really going to happen because this is such a deep team. So that's unfortunate. And then we have Isaiah Roby, who, as far as I know, hasn't really played this season except for preseason. He did look good in preseason, honestly, and I would like some minutes for him. But like I said, it's a deep team, and he gets called up by the Texas Legends, the G League team, often. So he gets playing time. I think that's pretty much everyone, and so okay, Dallas in their first game against Washington. That was a great game. They won. Then they played New Orleans, which they played well in again. New Orleans kept them in the game, but then in the fourth quarter, the Mavs just like ran away with it. So that was a great game for the Mavericks. Then they played against Portland, and they barely lost. And that was really unfortunate because it was a coach's challenge, and because of that, they turned the call around. And honestly, I don't really want to be like that biased Mavericks fan. So I'm not gonna be, because honestly, it seemed like a foul. Like I think it was Dorian Finney-Smith tried to steal the ball from Damian Lillard, and yeah, he got some hand. So that I guess that was a foul. It's just that they don't really overturn those calls often, so that was unfortunate, and that wasn't really necessary by the refs, I guess. But a call's a call. And then Kristaps, he tapped the ball too far away with the tip off. So Mavs could have won that, and that's honestly impressive. Portland is a great team. Then Dallas won against Denver, who has been struggling after that, coincidentally. So it was really impressive, but maybe not anymore as much. But that's okay. It was still a great win by the bench mostly, because Luka and Kristaps kind of struggled in that game, which immediately proved that we have a great bench, and that this is a really deep team. Okay, so then they played the Lakers, and man, that was such an intense game. Honestly, it went really back and forth, and the refs were so against the Mavericks. Like everything the Mavericks did was a call, was a foul or turnover, and it seems so biased. Like it often feels that way when you're watching a game, but it wasn't really even subtle or anything. It really felt like the refs wanted the Lakers to win and did everything for it. And that wasn't even really the moment where Dwight Howard held Seth Curry. They don't really often call that in like the last couple of seconds. So honestly, I think that was kind of smart by Dwight Howard to take some risk. Okay, or maybe not smart, but at least he was willing to take the risk, and that's not the worst idea. But it was some calls earlier where like the Mavericks were squared up, but it was a blocking foul, and where where they ran over somebody who wasn't squared up, but it was still a charge. Things like that, where it was just like BS calls, and I think honestly the Mavericks should have won that. So honestly, the Orlando Magic game was so rough. The Mavericks should have lost that. So you could basically see it as like the Mavericks won against the Lakers, but they lost against the Magic, and that honestly makes me feel kind of better about it. But I was really pissed at that game. Like I haven't been that pissed for a Mavericks game in years, and that's honestly that when I realized that was really fun. Honestly, like the Mavericks haven't been this competitive, where games really mattered in years, and it honestly makes you think like it's ridiculous how we got Luka and got this lucky, and how we got Kristaps for basically nothing. It's just I feel really fortunate as a Mavericks fan, and it's just so much fun to watch competitive Mavericks basketball again, and I'm just really happy with the team. I'm really proud of the team. Every single player works and plays hard, and it's fun how it revolves around Luka Doncic, but at the same time it's really a team. It's really like a deep team where everyone knows their role, everyone plays hard and plays together. It's a fun combination, honestly. I wanted to quickly mention that the Seats for Soldiers thing is really awesome, honestly. Of course, I've seen that since I became a fan, but it's so fun. I don't really know if other teams do that as well. I think some teams do it, but then don't really give up seats for the soldiers. I think that's the most fun thing. That front court season ticket holders, they give up their seats for soldiers, and that's amazing. Honestly, that's really an American thing to do, where they really like honor their soldiers that much. But it's honestly a nice thing to do. I really respect those soldiers for their hard work and stuff, and the things they had to go through for their country. And it's really nice to see something in return for them. And it's really fun because it gets the players like fired up and motivated. And maybe the Mavs wouldn't really have won were it not for the Seats for Soldiers night, So I really like that every year. Always look kind of forward to it, and it was really fun this year again. Something I want to talk about is about how Luka Doncic might be a top 5 player, and I really have to go through every player, I guess. So right now, I guess Kawhi Leonard is the best player, even though he doesn't really take the regular season that serious and he sits out a lot of games. I think he's still the best player. Then you have Giannis Antetokounmpo and LeBron James. Those are top 3 players right now. Then I guess you have Anthony Davis. And then it's going to be tough. I think already then you might be able to put Luka Doncic there. You could argue that Kyrie Irving right now is playing better. I don't think he is, honestly, though. But that might be biased a little bit. Let's say that Luka is definitely top 7. Because then you have Kyrie Irving above him. you could argue that maybe Kevin Durant or Paul George, but they're not playing right now, so that does really count. Maybe Damian Lillard is ahead of Luka, but I don't think so either. So definitely top six, I guess. I think that's the conclusion that I'm gonna take. That he's at least top six. No, wait, yeah, I'm forgetting James Harden. Wow, that's I mean, yeah, James Harden is definitely better than Luka. So at least top six. I don't think then he's top five yet. I used to think that James Harden was pretty overrated because he was really bad at defense. He wasn't efficient, but the last couple of years he's improved and he's been very efficient, and his defense hasn't been as terrible as before. So I give him credit, I guess, and I think he's better than Luka. Maybe Luka is better than LeBron, but no, I don't think so. So yeah, Luka is number 6, and then Kyrie Irving number 7, I guess. Yeah, I think that's fair. So then I wanted to talk about my predictions from the standings, which I made before the season started, but I didn't really get around to make a video about it. So I wanted to go over them and compare to how I feel about them now. So for the East, I had the Charlotte Hornets at 15, and I guess I still agree with that. They have been playing decent, but they're not that deep. They don't have that much talent, so I think I'm sticking with that. Then I have the Cleveland Cavaliers at 14. I mean, they probably stay there as well. Then I have the Washington Wizards at 13. I think they're at least better than that now, so maybe 11 or something. But then I had the Knicks at 12. I mean, they definitely stay there, or at least go lower. The Chicago Bulls at 11. I mean, the East is deeper now, and the Bulls are pretty decent, but they have struggled. So yeah, 11 is fair, I guess. Then Atlanta Hawks at 10, and the Pistons at 9. So I don't think I agree with that anymore. I think the Hawks are maybe a playoff team, because right now I have the Orlando Magic at 8, but I think the Hawks are better than them. And also I have the Indiana Pacers at 6, but they have really struggled. They're really not that good without Oladipo, and I didn't really expect that. He's going to come back this season, but it's probably going to be late. So, the Pacers could really fall out. So I think, give the Hawks credit. I think they're a playoff team now. I've predicted them at 10th, and they've definitely exceeded my expectations already. So, the Pistons at 9, Magic at 8, then the Nets at 7. I think the Nets could be a little higher, maybe 5 or 6 right now. Because, like I said, Kyrie Irving is really playing well. From what I've seen, DeAndre Jordan comes off the bench, which I was kind of afraid he would start. So that's great, because Jared Allen is amazing. So yeah, the Nets are playing decently well. Miami Heat at 5. Sure. I mean, yeah, I think so. I think they're better than the Nets, probably. I guess the Nets are better. Yeah, sure. So maybe I would have the Nets at 5 now. The Toronto Raptors I had at 4. They're still a deep team. So sure. Then the Celtics at 3. Philadelphia at 2. And Milwaukee at 1. Yeah, sure. I still agree with that top 3. Then the West. So just as a reminder, this was my predictions during or before preseason. So, I had the Phoenix Suns at 15. And that's honestly really funny now because they're so good. And I know it's just a couple of games and they're still the Phoenix Suns. But I think they're at least close to being a playoff team. At least like a 10th seed. They've proved that to me, honestly. Okay, well, let's go over the rest and then see where the Phoenix Suns end up. But I have the Memphis Grizzlies at 14. And yeah, they're not that great. They're a couple of years away. So they stay there. Then the New Orleans Pelicans at 13. Same thing, honestly. Then the Minnesota Timberwolves at 12. They started really well, but now they're already sort of struggling. So Yeah, I think that's reasonable, I guess. Then the OKC Thunder at 11. They're they're exceeding my expectations. They have been in a lot of close games and they've won some tough games. So, but the West is deep. So 11th is decent, I guess. Then the Kings at 10. Well, the Kings have really struggled, so I don't really believe that anymore. I think the Kings are more like maybe the 15th or 14th seed. Honestly, it's not really going well. They could turn it around, obviously, but going off what it is right now, I don't think they're going to be 10th. Then the Spurs at 9, and honestly, they're making the playoffs. It's that simple. They have DeJounte Murray back, and they're still a Greg Popovich team. They're going to make the playoffs. And then they had the Mavericks at 8, and I think that's kind of funny because I thought I was kind of being biased. I really felt that they would make the playoffs, but I also felt that maybe it was my bias. But they've exceeded my expectations by a lot, and I think they could really get a shot at getting home court advantage in the playoffs. Then I had the Golden State Warriors at 7, and they're definitely not making the playoffs. I didn't really predict that injury for Steph Curry, and I thought he would play better alongside D'Angelo Russell. But that hasn't really happened. So they're definitely not making the playoffs, which is fair because then the Spurs, who I had at 9, they could get in the playoffs. Then have the Portland Trailblazers at 6. Well, honestly, I think they're worse than I thought because Whiteside isn't really a great fit. I mean, they're still a great team, and the 6th seed is definitely possible. But I think the Mavericks and the Spurs are definitely better than them, and it wouldn't be. I mean, honestly, if the Suns keep playing this well, they might be better than the Trailblazers. But I don't really want to say that. So I think for now I would have the Portland Trailblazers at 8. So then I had the Lakers at 5, and honestly that's ridiculous because they've been so much better than I thought. They're going to be the number 1 seed, honestly, especially because the refs have been helping them. So I mean, they're probably going to be first. Then I have the Jazz at 4, and yeah, I think maybe the Mavericks or the Spurs are better than the Jazz right now, at least for in the regular season. But we'll see. Then the Clippers at 3. I think eventually the Clippers will play better. Right now they're, Kawhi is doing a lot of load management and stuff, but third seed isn't really impossible, I guess. Then I have the Rockets at 2, and the Rockets honestly have been struggling. So they'll still make the playoffs and they'll be competitive in the playoffs, and I think that's what matters. They have a lot of talent, and but they'll definitely be a lower seed. And then I have Denver at number 1, which I don't agree with anymore at all. Anymore, because they're kind of struggling. They could turn it around, obviously, but I mean I think like a 4th or 5th seed is more reasonable. So yeah, the conclusion is that I'm not great at making predictions, but at the same time, stuff changes. Like at the beginning of the season already, everything you thought a team was, it all turns out differently when the season starts. It's surprising, but it's just a fun season, and I think, like I said, the Mavericks have a good shot at being like the 4th or 5th seed. I think right now the Lakers are better, the Clippers, the Jazz maybe, and I guess this. Well, at least those 3 teams. Yeah, I guess we don't really know enough about the season, but Mavericks are definitely not getting a 1 or 2 seed. I think if they do, that's amazing. And yeah, I think 5th or something is reasonable right now, which is amazing. I didn't expect that coming into the season, and after like a bunch of years of tanking to get to like almost home court advantage, that would be amazing. Honestly, I'd be satisfied with an 8th seed with how they've been playing, which before the season I would have been with like a 9th or 10th seed, because then at least they would have been competitive. But I think with the standards they set themselves right now, at least an 8th seed is reasonable. But honestly, they can get a lot higher. So yeah, I think that's it. The Mavericks play against the Knicks tonight. Probably gonna stay up for it because it starts at 1 a.m. on a Friday, so that's a nice game. And like I mentioned, I am or used to be, I'm not sure anymore, a sort of a Knicks fan. My second favorite team, my Eastern team. But I haven't watched a single game from them because of how toxic the organization and the fan base is. So I'm excited to watch them play for the first time, to see how they are, I guess. But at the same time, not really. But yeah, the Mavericks are easily gonna win this. The Knicks might be the worst team right now in the NBA, and then they have a back-to-back, which I always think is really fun. But it might be less fun for the players. But tomorrow they play the Memphis Grizzlies. I think they're gonna win that one as well, but it won't be as easy as against the Knicks. So yeah, I'm excited for both games. If they win both games, then they will be 7-2, which would be amazing. Right now, they're second in the Western Conference, tied second with the Nuggets. And the Clippers. And yeah, I think if they win both games, they might be officially like second or third. That will be amazing. That's honestly really impressive. So yeah, looking forward to that. Go Mavs.
I got too much Monta.
Monta Ellis, ask the fellas, who talk trash because they jealous. Laid back from the south, trying to hack up, I'll make you shut your mouth.
Monta.